for years, obviously, you were at CNN when they were pretty much the only game in town for at least for the first 20 years, and then MSNBC popped up, and then Fox and all that. But when I watch these guys now, and I'm watching, it seems to me nobody has a clue what's going on, and yet they're all just talking. And I'm starting to think that that's almost a bigger part of the problem than the politicians themselves.
I've started. There used to be a complaint that you'd give a speech and then they'd analyze the speech, and I used to say, no, you need to hear what clear-thinking people think. But now I don't watch it after the debate. I'm getting tired of debates already because it's redundant.
Yeah, well, hopefully only 6 or 8 left.
Yeah, but they come on to say he did this, he did that, he did it, and they're all guessing.
Yeah.
Nobody knows the mind of the public. They don't know the mind. It's that we say, boy, these people are this way, and they're going to go that way, and this is going to go this way. And obviously in Michigan, where he goes to the law back, they don't know what they're talking about. I mean, they know what they're talking about from their own base, but they don't know what they're talking about.
Isn't it a little scary when they do that, and then they'll say, well, white working class people vote this way, or black people vote this way, or Asians vote this way, or Jews vote this way, that they're not taking us into account as our individuals. They're taking us into account as these groups. And that's so the reverse of the way America is supposed to operate.
And another thing they never do. Never do. Same as weathermen on television. They never come back the next day and explain when they were wrong.
Yeah.
Like a weatherman, if he predicts rain and it doesn't rain, he never the next night says, hey, here's why I was wrong yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, these clouds moved this way. They never come back the next day, boy, was I wrong about that. When I told you that, the Methodists were not going to go this way, I was wrong.
They never admit
and that's infuriating. So I don't watch the groups of people talking together after a convention or after a debate.
So that's interesting because you're a guy that has spent your whole life doing the one-on-ones, and obviously,
I used to ask questions, and I'd be asking a lot of questions that are not being asked now. Why do you come to this conclusion? Or, how did you get there? Who did you talk to? Because the problem is, as Mike Wallace once told me, the problem is people in Washington, and I was in Washington for 20 years. We all go to lunch together.
Yeah.
We go to the Palm. Right? And then we go to dinner.
Yeah.
And then we meet here, and then we meet there, and we talk all about the same things we're talking about, and no one talks to Idaho.
Yeah. You never took me to the Palm.
What?
You never took me to the Palm.
In Washington?
No, here. Maybe we could go out to lunch at the
I'll
Palm.
tell you, I go to the Palm.
All right.
Sure.
An invite.
But here you talk showbiz.
Yeah.
The only thing common between Washington and L.A. is real estate.
Yeah.
Both cities talk real estate.
Yeah.
But if you go to lunch in L.A., I'll go to lunch in Washington and see the Washington Post on the tables, people grabbing them as they sit down. I've never been to lunch in L.A. to see someone reading the L.A. Times.
So is that then part of it, that the people that we put on TV to be the so-called experts, all of the talking heads on all the cable news channels, that really what they are entertainers first? So they're not necessarily there to break down the ideas. I always say on my show, I'm trying to turn this into a battle of ideas. I want to pull the string out to start unraveling some of the real questions we have to deal with. But these guys are entertainers first, and that's why they're yelling all the time and over the top and screaming.
That's what they become.
Do you see that as a real danger?
Yeah, there was a great crew years ago, you're too young, at CBS, when Ed Murrow would have a panel. He would have Cronkite, Mike Wallace, Dan Shore.
These were real news
hardcore
guys.
Journalists. I mean, come on. These guys wrote books.
Yeah.
I mean, they were
books.
And they were used to
longer than tweets.
And they were used to being on television.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the glamour of television to them, or now I'm a star, right? And so they were really into it, and you got real good analysis then.
Yeah.
And now there's so much of it. And cable television, while it's wonderful to have 24-hour news, it's also consuming. It gets, it's crazy. I mean, the best example, my old friends at CNN, and I had a great time, and I loved Ted Turner, my great friend. When that plane went missing, they covered that night and day and never learned a thing.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't get off it, because obviously they had initial numbers. But all we know about that plane to this minute is it made a left turn.
Yeah.
That's all we ever knew.
So
With all their experts, we only know it made a left turn. That's it.
So basically for 2 months, they did 24-hour coverage on that thing. It was never resolved, and here we are now.
And all of it was supposition.
Yeah.
Every discussion was, I guess, it might, maybe. That's not news.
So as a news guy and as a talker,
drove me nuts.
Yeah, how do you balance how much of this actually gets into you as a person, into your day-to-day life?
If I was still there, I would have been laughing while I asked some of the questions. In day-to-day life, we have so many means of communication. For example, the saddest thing to me is the diminishing of print. I'm a New York Times addict. I think it's the best newspaper ever. I learn more from the New York Times than I learned from any other media. I read it every day. The Sunday New York Times is a 3-hour joy to me, just to cover the things they cover. New Yorker Magazine, New York Times. And that print is in trouble is sad to me, because I don't learn a lot from television. Mm-hmm. I don't know where network news is going. I mean, it's still a good half-hour newscast. Mm-hmm. Local news is all car chases and fire. Yeah. Fire, robbery, car chase.
Yeah, nothing. No one ever turned on the local news and thought, I'm getting some real
You're not
information.
Getting,
You're getting nothing, yeah.
Like Steve Allen once said, it's 11 o'clock, time for the news. There's a fire in the Chestnut Hill section. Oh, by the way, war has started today. We'll cover that right after the weather.
Exactly. So it's a lot of that. So just let's just do a couple of the cultural things that are going on at the moment, because I think probably the most important thing for your entire career, maybe your life, is free speech, because your whole career was based and has been based on talking to people and free speech. It seems to me we're in a weird spot with free speech right now. It's not the government. Nobody fears the government coming for your free speech anymore. But we've sort of been self-censoring ourselves as a country for a long time right now by people screaming out all these buzzwords that we've talked about. You're a racist.
Free speech is for the minority speaker. I mean, the majority doesn't need free speech. It owns the microphone. So you can petition the government for redress of grievance. Yeah. You can gather in front of the building and say, stop this measure.
Yeah. So what do you make of it when protesters will, they stopped cars going to a road where Trump was going to speak, or if they shout down any of these guys, because then they're using their protest to speech, but they're using it to stop someone else.
The funny part of that is, I have always, since the civil rights movement, been a believer in civil disobedience. Mm-hmm. Martin Luther King broke the law. He would march without a permit. Yeah. Supposed to get a permit. He wouldn't get a permit. They put him in jail overnight. But I supported him, so I didn't mind that. Right. But if I don't support something, I don't like you upsetting the thing. So protesters should not be allowed to scream when someone's speaking. Right. That's not an embodiment of free speech. If you want to stand outside the building with a picket line, absolutely. Mm-hmm. If he's taking questions, he should listen to your question, or she should listen to your question. Yeah. But the right to speak, he has a right. It's his hall. He has a right to speak. You have a right to protest, but if you're vehemently protesting, that's stupid. Yeah. So how do we decide where to draw that line? Because that's what I've been feeling we're going to get more and more of as this election, as we roll out the next 8 months. That it's just going to become, more my speech just beats your speech because I'm yelling. I hope not. Yeah. I don't know what to do about that in this modern age where anything you do is going to be covered. And there's so many things to fear today. I mean, logical fear. Yeah. You can fear going into a public place. You got to look around. How does that guy look? Yeah. I mean, you have to think about that. You go to airports. How much can you protect an airport? For example, I can protect you when I go through the security line, right? What about before the security line? Right, where does that begin then? Carry a little bomb into the airport. I can carry a little bomb into the airport. Yeah, right? So that's the problem right there. We don't have this discussion, right? We don't have this honest discussion in sort of a long-form way where we can really discuss the philosophical reasons of why maybe too much state power would infringe on too many rights, or that we have to give up some security for some freedom. How much do you give up? The growth of fascism in Europe is scary. The anti-Israeli, anti-Jewish talk on college campuses is incredible. Yeah. I mean, they just passed in the California regions how to pass a a law, not a law, a ruling,
Yeah.
not to be anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's the left wing gone wild. You can be a critic of Israel. These people go crazy beyond. It's scary.
Did you ever think it was going to be the left doing this? Our left and right is all crossed up now, too, isn't it?
You know,
does it mean anything to you when someone says this is left, this is right? It doesn't really have any
the
meaning
whole
the way it
world
used to.
is nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're all, look at Mort Saul, the great Mort Saul. He
Yeah.
did a routine once. It's the end of World War II. And this guy who was fighting in the war was hit by a little thing, hit his helmet and a soldier, and he had amnesia. So from 1943 to 1948, he was out of it. Now he wakes up and he goes, "Give me a gun and I will kill those Germans." "No, the Germans are our friends."
Yeah.
"Well, I got to fight with our fellow Russians." "No, the Russians are our enemy." "Okay, then I'm going to kill the Chinese." "No, you can't kill them. You're going to kill the Japanese." "No, the Japanese are our friends." Everything he's learned is gone. And finally he says, I'm going to go to Cuba for vacation.
So is that what it's all about? That this is just...
What goes around comes around.
Yeah.
Everything, but it's more insane now because of technology.
Yeah.
See, this social media, this craze
Yeah.
has gotten so, I don't even know how to describe. You know, with all progress comes problems.
Yeah.
If we never had an airplane, no one would ever die in an airplane crash. Right? Okay. So we have all this technology, which is wonderful, but it's kids don't read papers. I have never seen my 17 or 16-year-old read a newspaper.
Right. He's scrolling Twitter, maybe getting a headline, but...
I guess they're on Twitter all the time.
Yeah.
My son's I6, he was down in Florida playing baseball, broke. Sad, depressing face. What did he do?
What did he do?
He had to wait 3-4. He's getting his new one as we speak.
Wow.
But he had to wait 4 days without a phone.
Yeah. You could have lent him the person that you dictate to.
He was in Florida.
Oh, that would have been tough.
He used a friend's phone, but he couldn't check all his little things and his girls and his text marks and his thing. All the things I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And another thing, though, these kids, this is crazy.
Yeah.
I'll go pick something up for him, a gadget, something. And I'll say, "Do you want to come to the store?" They'll tell you how to do it.
He does, yeah.
I know how to do it. You give them
You had instruction manuals when you were a kid. That's what you're saying. If you got a refrigerator, you looked at a manual. Yeah.
What manual?
Yeah. There's no manuals.
They don't know a manual.
There's no manuals anymore.
Oh, it's a different world, David. You could solve all the problems. You're bright.
I don't know if I can solve all of them, but I can solve some of them. So I know I got to let you go here. So first,
what is the answer?
Well, I think the answer is this: that you have to be willing to talk about people, talk about people, and talk to people. You have to unravel some of this stuff, and what social media is doing, as you just said, with the good comes the bad. Well, it's connecting us. And then it's also showing us things across the world. You know, we see bombings across the world, and suddenly we get afraid for our own lives. You know, and because so there's fear and there's greatness. It's all mixed up, and we have to keep pushing.
Fascism can move into that in Europe, especially. See, I worry about this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, fascism rises when people are down, because along comes that one guy that says, "I will take you out of this. They are oppressing us. Listen to me."
Yeah.
And people buy that. In 1936, Adolf Hitler made a speech in Germany that they were taking down the law of warrants. You didn't need a warrant. The police didn't need a warrant to search your house.
Right.
And his explanation was, if you have nothing to hide, people of Germany, what are you afraid of? This way, we will catch people, and since you have nothing to hide, they can search your house, right? And they bought it.
Yeah.
The German people said, that makes sense.
Right.
Search my house, I got nothing to hide.
So that's interesting because it's obviously, we know this now, it's such a horrific idea. But you're saying he was sort of laying the groundwork.
He made sense to those people. Could that happen now in America? Could
Yeah.
someone say, wait a minute, Americans, why don't we search every Muslim's house?
So is that the danger
And the
of Trump?
Muslims should accept it because you have nothing to fear, right?
Yeah. So is that the danger of Trump? I know you're not laying that on his
No,
door.
I'm
I know you're not laying it on his feet, but
I'm laying it on society.
But that concept, though, that concept of easy answers, it seems like he's giving a lot of easy answers.
Yes,
and
it's
that's
appealing.
where does it go?
Now, Trump personally is not that way at all.
Yeah.
But the Trump feeling, if you take it to the next road,
Yeah.
what along comes the next Trump who said, let's search their houses.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next one, or someone who might say, what do you need a warrant? Why should we have a warrant? You got nothing to hide. I'll bet that would make sense. You know what wouldn't pass today? The Bill of Rights.
That's pretty sad, right? That's a pretty sad.
Wouldn't pass.
Yeah, yeah, and it's the underpinning of everything.
That's right.
Of everything
it's
that
what
we do.
separates us from the world.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know I got to let you go, but so first.
Anytime, David.
Anytime. First, I just want to publicly thank you for bringing me on board here and just showing some belief in me. And
you're great.
Well,
you're a terrific talent. You're born for this. You have become the supreme pundit. The thing you hate the most, you have become.
Oh, God. Now I know what's going on in my
You
tombstone.
have met the enemy, and it is us.
All right, so I'm going to ask you one more thing, and I did ask you this once before, and I want to see if your answer is exactly the same. So in all your years of doing all this, everything, all the people that you've talked to, every world leader of all time, what's it all about?
When Gertrude Stein was dying, her friend Alice Toklas leaned over the bed and said, Gertrude, what is the answer? What is the answer? And Gertrude opened one eye and said, what the hell is the question? And died. We'll never know.
We'll never know.
But I leave you with I heard a great joke.
Yeah.
I love jokes, though.
Yeah.
This is a great joke.
Okay.
There's a lumber camp, and they're hiring people to chop down trees. And the foreman is interviewing people, and in the door comes a one-armed midget. A midget with one arm. And he says, I can cut down trees. And the foreman says, are you kidding? He said, no, give me a chance. He said, okay, here's an axe. There's some trees. Go out there. The midget goes out, whack, 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 whack. 10 trees fall down in a minute. He comes back in. The foreman says, you are hired. You're the best tree cutter I have ever seen. You're a midget with one. It's unbelievable. He said, where'd you work before this? He says, I worked in the Sahara forest. Well, you mean the Sahara Desert? Well, now. That's a great joke.
There's the meaning of life right there. All right, well, it's always a
Dave.
pleasure, my friend. And you guys, I'm pretty sure you know where you can find Mr.
Larry,
King.
he's everywhere.
At King's Things on the Twitter, Aura.tv/Larry King Now and all that good stuff. And I thank you, my friend.
Thank you, David.